Hi, this is Astrud with the Dallas Makerspace. Paul is on the equipment cart. We are streaming to you from the interactive classroom, and we're going over the Serger, the Brother Serger. We have a couple of them here at the Makerspace for use, and we have over here behind. Yeah, at this table. I took your Serger. So I'll hand it back over in a second. So we have our sergers here, and this is usually the one that's out on a small table over in the creative arts sewing room. And so we're going to go over the components of the serger, threading the serger, basically what you want to take a look at when you are getting ready to use the serger. And I'm going to hand this one back to Beth here, who's with us in the classroom today. She also teaches a lot of the sewing 101, so she's a good resource as well. So we'll have, but this one here, since this one's been in the actively used, has the best example of lint and some things that you want to go ahead and investigate. So close up to the, so we've got the serger right here, and we've got our front door. If you notice that right here we've got 2 needles, and we have our lever to lift the presser foot up and down. And you may see already the numbers that are on here. This is the order of operations to go ahead and do your threading. So 1, 2, 3, 4. These 2 on this side are your loopers, which we'll see in just a second, and then these 2 are for the needles. And one of the things that we have is a thread guide, which is right here in the back, kind of out of the shot, and I'm going to lift it up. If you go to the wide shot, I can go ahead and show. So in the wide shot here, you can see the thread guide, which I'm holding, and you can see that I've got this one already elevated. So if it's down, you just go ahead and pull it up. Here in the back are where all of your spools of thread will go, and we will be using cone thread for the serger, since the serger tends to, we'll be using cone thread today, since the serger tends to go through a lot of thread at a time. But if you have also in this little box that I've got some spool holders as well. In the pink box, this has all the serger parts and accessories, and this is located in the creative arts room on the sewing materials shelf. And so this would actually hold spools in case you needed specialty colors. So before we even put our thread on the machine, one of the things that you're going to do is we're going to go ahead and open up this front door. So switch to this camera that you've got. No, this one. We're going to open up this front door. So this opens up, and it's going to show us some threading guides, but the big thing that I want to show is this inside. Right in here where all your machinations are, or your guts. And as you can see, this one has been in use for a good while, and nobody's cleaned it. So when you come in to use the serger, the first thing that you want to make sure that you have a brush with you in your little personal kit, or if there's not a brush available. So I've got this little watercolor brush, and I need to go ahead and dust out. You can see I'm pulling out all of this lint. And here comes the close-up cam, and you can see that right here there's just all of this lint that's in here. You do not want to use a air blower in here because the serger is already oiled up, and if you blow air in here, you're just going to push you're just going to push the lint into the grease, and you're going to cause other little clogs. But you can see how I'm pulling out all of this lint in here. And this comes off because right here, if I lift this foot up, right here there's a cutting blade. And so this blade is cutting fabric, and every single time it cuts the fabric, you're getting lint, just little linty pieces. So basically the first thing you'll want to do is to get all of this dust and lint out of here. So I'm going to give this machine back over to Beth, and I'm going to pull the other one up front. So 1 second. Oops, bump the light. So yeah, just slide that door open and you can finish delinting. And then here's your cones. Okay. Did I get my other cones? Now toss me that blanket there. Okay, so what exactly, you can see here on the deck that there's this little chain of thread. What does that look like? If you look at some of your clothing items in the inside, you can see how there is this looped, this stitch. So the serger does this has the loopers, so it loops over, and there was fabric on the edge of this, so the machine will cut this edge as it finishes this stitch right here. So this has a very professional 4-thread overlock is the stitch we're going to be working with, that will, if you take a look at the inside of your t-shirt or any of your shirts, you're going to see on the seams going down the sides that there is an overlock stitch that is in this, and that is commonly used. So it's a nice professional finishing stitch, and it's a whole heck of a lot easier than you think. So this here is a sample of a fleece blanket top. This is the miniature version of the one that we teach in class, which ends up, we use 7-inch strips, so the squares are 7-inch squares. This one here is probably about 2.5 inches finished, and so we'll end up with like a 6.5-inch square, and the blanket will be almost 50 inches. So that's an advanced class that we do once you're really comfortable with the serger, but this is just a sample of what it looks like. I serge blankets all the time, and I love it. Keeps them nice and durable. So I've got cones of thread that are here on the side. If I were going to use small spools of thread, then I would switch out this cone holder that is on the peg, the thread peg on the back, with one of these, which will sit on the pin, and then the spool will sit on top of it. And this keeps the spool in position so that it's not wobbling all over the peg, which is very thin, as you can see in this over here in this other. Do you have all 3 of them up right now? So that way you can see on this right here where I took it off, if I put it on here, it will sit. So sometimes that's handy to have on occasion. Oh, put it back over here. So sometimes that's handy to have on occasion, because as you can see, these cones come with about 3,000 yards of thread on them, and these are not the big giant commercial machine cones, but this is still a lot of thread. And if I had this sitting alone on here, you can see that it moves around, and so that's why I need this cone holder right there, so that way when I drop the spool on there, it keeps it in place so it doesn't spin around. So what I like to do when I'm showing you how to use this machine is, and we're going to use the 4 colors to match the 4 spools, the 4 dials on here, so that way you can see what each one is doing, and that way you know what exactly where the thread is on the, you get a realistic picture aside from looking at this little printed diagram. One of the first things I tell you to do when you are going to thread this machine is take the foot pedal and put it when it's already plugged in, because this will turn on some light right here. But if I have this door open, since this is a lower model machine, if I activate or bump this foot pedal will, the machine will engage. And you don't, when we're going to be sticking our fingers and we're going to be sticking some tweezers in there, and we do not want this thing to engage if we accidentally bump the foot pedal. So what I tell all the students to do when you're going to thread this machine, you just go ahead and take that foot pedal and put it over to the side of your work area, so that way your feet are not kicking or bumping or nobody's walking by it. Here's a pair of tweezers. Okay. So generally in the serger box or with the serger, there should be a pair of tweezers, because we're going to need it to go in this area. But one of the ones that I like to get is this this set of tweezers here. I picked up over at the Daiso, which is a Japanese dollar store, for $1.50, and I really like that these are nice and tiny, have a nice and tiny bent nose, and these are nice precision tweezers. And but there should be tweezers in the sewing area. If there is not a pair, there's always 1 or 2 pairs. Hopefully, if you take them out, put them back in the serger box, so that because they are like gold and they will disappear. So you can see I've got some old thread in here, and we're not going to pull on that thread. We're just going to go ahead and gently guide this chain out and unthread the machine. And so if you saw that, you could see how the blade goes up and down. So this is the blade right here. The foot pedal was engaged so I could get that all out, and you saw the parts moving around. So I'm going to go ahead and get my cones in position. And pull out my tweezers here. Okay. So, or you could also carry in your own little personal box, which I do. I have a little personal box of serger stuff when I come in, which will have a pair of tweezers, a little paintbrush, and some needles. This machine also takes the 2022 needles if I needed to change them out. And this is the 2022 needle, universal regular point overlock needles. This is what you would use. The orange, of course, is for lighter weight fabrics. The blue is for mid-weight fabrics, and the purple is for heavyweight fabrics such as fleece or even denim. You can also use the blue for the fleece as well. So these are some good little needles to have in your personal stash in case you need to change needles out. So we'll put that over to the side. Now, the first color that's going to go ahead and be threaded is the green. So this is going to be the upper looper. This right here is the upper looper. So when I move this You can see how it looks like a little bird beak, and this is the upper one. So that's the one we're going to be threading into. So I'm going to take my thread. Remember that thread guide that we pulled up? The thread guide we pulled up is the first area, so I'm going to bring the thread from the back to the front. When I have up at the top, Paul, I need you to come close up for the top. So I want you to be able to see the top of the serger here. So we'll bring another camera over here. Okay, on the top, you're going to see some little clips that are on there. There's something right up here on the very top. So on the top here, okay, so there's this clip right here. So after the thread goes through the gray guide, it'll have the number 2 on it, and it will slide under and lock underneath here. So there's a little bit of a tension there. We also want to make sure that we lift the foot pedal. So this way there's some tension discs that are inside in here that if you put your phone, your flashlight into, you'll be able to see them, and they will hold the thread in between it. And depending upon what number it is set, whether it's going to be a tighter tension or it'll be a little bit looser tension to allow the thread to go through. So this first one, I'm going to put it through the metal clip here up at the top. Okay, you've got that up there. Then I'm going to bring it through. I should be able to hear going into this tension. Think of flossing your teeth. So there, I'm getting in between the discs, if you can hear that. Makes a little bit of a click. So now I can feel there's a little bit of tension in there as I'm pulling it down this way. And I'm just going to follow my green line. So 4 was pulling down, follow my green line, hook into number 5 right here. Number 6, you can see some green dots right here on top of this first one. Okay, and then go to number 7, which is right here. Number 8 has a little cartoon, so we've gone through here, and I need to go ahead and get that thread through this little hole right here, and it needs to be in the front. So here's where your tweezers come in handy. So I can't quite see there. Okay, so I'm going to switch hands so you can see the thread has gone into the looper. Okay, now I'm going to bring this thread in front and around. Okay, so now I have the thread. I've pulled it underneath the foot pedal, and I'm pulling it all the way over. Oops, I just popped it back. I'm kind of weaving around the blade. So you'll want to pull it back. Just one moment while we have our get our person that just called in for the stream. Huh?
That's me.
Oh, that's you?
Yeah,
So we'll just wait here. Oh, there we go. All right, so now we're back. So this corner of the deck right here that I'm touching, this is going to be a good common spot for you to think of. The difference between a serger, you saw that chain I pulled off, and a sewing machine. A sewing machine, you cut that thread very close to the foot. The serger, not so much, because then you'll be constantly rethreading it. So as you're threading, pull the thread, any threads that we're using, over here to the corner of this deck. Anytime that we are going to cut, this corner of the deck is where you're going to cut after you've put an extra chain on there. I'm going to show you an example of that as we get further in. So now I'm going to my lower looper, and that is going to be this looper. You can see it right here. It's this part right there. So, and it's going to go, it goes this way as the upper looper went this way. So I'm going to grab this, try not to get in front. I've got so many cameras around me, it's hard not to get my arms in the way. Once again, go through the top, through the gray, get it onto that clip, pull it through the tension discs, make sure I can hear it. Okay, so it's in there, so I know it's there. Come down to follow the leads of the 5. Then I've got to go through both of these down here. And then I've got 8, and now I've got the cartoon again. It shows that I have to pull this dial out. You can see this is part of it, 9, and you can see if I push it back in, the arrows match up right in there. And I'm going to pull it out again. And then I'm going to wrap the thread. Paul, I wonder if I can move this camera over to this side, because I'm right in my arms are right into it. Just put it here in front of me. Kind of drop down a little bit. Okay, there we go. So this is what I was talking about right here. We can see how it's tucked in over here when it's, now I've pulled it out. Okay, so I'm going to, there's a little clip or a little claw, a little spot where I can go ahead and pull, I can catch. I'm going to grab my tweezers again, and I'm going to stick this one in this hole here. Oops. And I'm going to reach here back and pull that one through. Okay, so now I'm going to push this little white back over to the other arrow. So now my loopers are both threaded. Okay, so I'm done with this bottom part. So now I can go ahead and close this one. So if you could see those, yeah, those I'm done with right there. So I'm going to go ahead and close this door because I don't need this door anymore. And I'm going to move this camera back. There. Tip up so we can get to the perfect. So now I'm going to go to number 3, which is my inner needle. That's going to be this needle right here. So from the other side, it's the inner needle right there. So I have to find where my thread is. So I'm going to pull my thread up, come from the back side again, through the gray thread guide, catch the top guide, and then I can hear it again. And so 4 is right here behind, I'm not going behind the plate, I'm just going to just gently hold it right there, have it guide along the top, I'm sorry, this lower lip. go through number 5 here, which is of course similar to a sewing machine. Then I'm going to go behind, and this one does not have, this one has a little bit of thread on the edge. So before I try to put that in the needle, I want to go ahead and trim it so it has nothing hanging off. And if you need to move this out of the way to get a better, okay, so there's my needle up. So, okay, I've got the first needle threaded. Once again, I'm going to make sure my thread is under the foot pedal and all 3 threads are over to that corner. So now I'm going to thread my outer needle. So once again, so you can see that 1, 2, and 3 are pretty much all the same because you're coming in through the back of the thread guide up there, going through the tension plates, and then back over here. And this takes, you know, trust me, as you break threads, if something happens, this machine, you're just going to have to rethread. And as much as you hate it, trust me, you'll get fast at doing this. Usually the machine that's available in the creative arts, unless some thread broke, it's usually pre-threaded so that you don't have to worry about trying to rethread. So now I have all 4 threads over here to the corner of the deck. I'm going to close my door, and I'm going to put my presser foot down, and now I can go ahead and put the foot pedal down on the floor, because now I'm in control of engaging that because I actually want to. And got it there. And I'm going to hold my threads here at the end. Oops, I already see that the yellow already popped out above the plate. Got it. Get it back under. So all 4 are under. So I'm going to go ahead now, hold my threads, and I'm going to engage the presser foot. The foot pedal. So as you can see, I'm getting a chain. So this chain, before I start anything, this chain, I'm going to always make sure that I have, I get it all the way out. Okay. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that all of these here on the side, all of these dials, this one right here engages the cutting blade. You will always pretty much be using the cutting blade. When you're not using the cutting blade, you're probably doing a rolled edge. So since we're doing a 4-thread overlock, so this cutting blade needs to be engaged. Just leave your settings at the preset settings of 5 for this is your stitch. This is your stitch width. So you'll see it in a second. This is also for the. This one has to do with stitch length, and and then this one also has to deal with stretchiness. So just leave them on your generic settings, and you shouldn't have any problems unless you really only need to move these unless you're switching fabrics. And so right now we're just going ahead and we're going to be testing on some cotton fabric. your generic settings up here on your dials to start with, you need to have them on 4, 4, 4, 4. That is the normal and the beginning setting that you should be starting with. And when in doubt, automatically set those tensions to 4. And you're going to get your piece of test fabric. And you're going to see I'm going to put it here under the foot. And you're going to watch the magic, because I'm going to end up with a finished piece of fabric when it comes out the end. So you are not pulling this, you are guiding it. Let the feed dogs do their work. And you are steering the ship when it comes to this, because if you're pulling this, you're going to cause issues with your needles. You're just going to cause issues in general, and you don't want that to do that, because you have 2 needles going up and down, and then you have your upper looper going this way, pretty much at the same time, and then you have your lower looper going this way. And so if we've got all of this going on with 2 needles going up and down in between all of this, you do not want to pull your fabric and have issues. This is where also, if you're doing some things, this is where, remember we talked about clips the last time. This is good for clips, because if your needles go through that blade, that cutting blade, you could damage the cutting blade, and then all it's going to do is gum the fabric. Now, I do not want to cut this right here very close, okay? Can you see that? Are you switching cameras? I need this one here on the deck. Yes. So I've got this fabric that has come through. I'm not going to cut this right here. I need to go ahead and take it out to the corner, and then I'm going to take it out to the corner again. So now if I bring this back over, I should have I've got my finger holding on the edge of the corner that we've talked about. That is where I want to cut my chain. So I still have chain that's going over to the edge, and I have chain that is coming off here. And let me go ahead and tell you why. I'll show you right here on this one. If I cut this chain right here at the edge, because there's no back and forth, there's no reverse. If I cut that chain right there at the edge of the fabric, this thing can start to pull apart, and over time. So as you're wearing this, you can see how barely, I can start pulling this open, and the stitch can come undone. So there's 2 ways to deal with this. If you look at commercial fabrics or commercial clothing, you'll see one of 2 things. They take the chain, which camera are we at? They take the chain and they'll run it through the loops. So if you look at the base, so it will actually be run, and you'll see a little bit of it go through, and it'll be underneath the woven into this. I go ahead and leave with enough chain. I just do a knot. This is the other alternate. So I tie and I've had a lot of practice with this. So you can see my knot is fairly close to the edge. And I've actually gotten the knot right up against that fabric. So then when I trim it, if I don't want that chain there. So there's my little knotted piece. So right now, as I'm looking at this, you can see right there that all of my loops, I can see where the yellow and the red is. You get a better idea. And you can see where the blue is, which is when you're looking at the blue thread, the green thread, the red thread, and the yellow thread. So now you have an idea as to where they're at. Now take a look. If you can see, it's kind of hard. I'm trying to get that. You can see how they're nice and even on this fabric. and you can see how the tops of the loops, let's see if I can get it to focus right here. The tops of the loops, literally there's a little ridge on top where the loops connect to each other. And trying to get the close-up of that, but you can see how they're not on either side, but you can see how they kind of sit right there up at the top. Let's see if we can get a close-up. Okay. Okay, touch that screen. Yeah, so you can see right there. You can see how it's nice and tight right there up on the top. That right there is what you're looking for. Okay, so that's where we started at 4, 4, 4, all fours all the way across. So if this tension, I'm going to go ahead and do some really loose. Basically, the higher the number goes, the tighter the tension. The lower the number, the looser the tension. So right now I'm going to run another stitch. So we know that this is my perfect one right here. I'm going to run another one. And basically what I do is I cut a strip of my fabric that I'm going to be stitching on. And as I'm adjusting tension, I will just basically go down the line. Already you can see that there is a problem, okay? So right now I have, so let's put this up against the numbers so that you can see where these numbers were at. So already, you know, here's my nice beautiful 4, 4, 4, and then this is what's currently going on here. So you can see definitely the difference right there between the two. And, you know, tension is totally off. I'm getting loops. See how it's going on the other side. On this side, see how we could see the red over there. Can't even see it on this. They're all squished together. That's a hot mess. So this is where we would want to go ahead. And when you are going to start adjusting tension for specific fabric, if you're trying to tweak something, you only work with one dial at a time. But since we know that these machines work best at 4, we're going to put everything back to the 4s, and we work with the tension from there. So I'm going to go ahead and back to normal. Okay, so that's what we're looking at. So one of the things you might be asking is, oh, what if I don't leave this long piece of chain that goes out to this corner? So here is, I'm going to go ahead and cut it short, and I'm hoping it will unthread. Usually the machine, when it's cut that close, will unthread. It's proving me wrong. So it didn't quite unthread, but I've got some interesting things going on here at the top of the, because you see how it pulled itself all together. So I've got some interesting things going on over here at the edge. But overall, the stitch looks good. But definitely just get in the habit. This corner deck is where you're going to go ahead and chain out to. And then also, if I'm using another piece of fabric, if I'm sewing something, So you can see I've got pretty much that same amount of chain. So that way I can go ahead and tie it off. And that's basically using this particular, this is just a regular piece of cotton cloth, something that you might do a shirt with, or maybe a skirt or something like that. So what about fleece? Fleece is something, the whole thing about sergers is that you want to be able to do stretchy fabrics. So fleece definitely has stretch. This is a two-way stretch, and then you can see I don't have, which means it stretches, you know, this two directions, you know, and then this side it doesn't. If it was a four-way stretch like bathing suit material or dance material or spandex basically, it would stretch this way and it would also stretch this way so that way it could fit. So the same thing with fleece. I'm going to start with my everything on 4. Okay, so far it looks like everything went okay. It kind of kicked it a little bit over here. You can see how it shifted it. So that is something you have to be aware of with fleece. The other thing is that what happens if you serge along the, this is where you start making adjustments. If I'm going to go ahead and serge along the stretchy side. So I'm holding it together. I'm just letting it guide through. So I got pretty much a fairly straight edge there, but you can see where it starts to curve there, which we don't necessarily want. So we would have to play with our tensions to go ahead and get that adjusted. One of the things that you might see also is if you're holding too tight on that edge. If I'm letting it go through on its own, but if I'm holding and then you see how definitely it is all stretched out. So this is where you definitely want to guide your stitch and not pull or add tension to it, because then you're getting this lettuce leaf kind of edge on here. Now if that's a decorative thing that you want, like on an edge of a hat or something, then that's fine. But generally when you're stitching together a sweatshirt or a clothing item or other hats, you don't want to pull because it's going to do this. In some cases, at this point, we could probably bump this for fleece up to 6 on that one dial. As you can see, I've got scraps coming off from the cutting blade, so I'm going to pitch those over in the trash. Okay. Okay, much straighter. That's a nice, pretty even right there. The other thing that you do not want to do when you're stitching thicker fabrics, you do not want to go, I remember I mentioned on the last class, We're in the school zone. We are not on the tollway. And same thing here. We're in the school zone on this one, especially because what will happen on this machine, if I start going too fast, this one actually didn't do it, but there have been times, so this machine is a lot more in tune right now. There have been times where the stitches themselves will skip. So if you start having skipping stitches in here where there's just a little notch instead of having the full serged edged, you might want to slow your foot pedal down, slow your roll basically, and put the brakes on. Remember, 20 miles an hour, school zone, especially when you're first using this. Now, what is static? On this machine, there is also a sleeve deck. So if you were doing something that was circular, that you needed to serge, you can go ahead and use this. And you might be asking, how would you do something that's round? So we'll do a quick demo of round, like this tube here. Well, I've got a lot of, this is my older pair.
Oh, not DMS one.
There's not DMS, these are mine. So, and I've got this static that's driving me nuts. So, I'm staticky. So, see how I'm going to start over here on the edge. Gently go through this spot. See how I've got a little bit of, what do I go ahead and do with this? I'm going to go ahead and so now I've got a spot where I can go ahead and put this knot. And if you take a look at some of your sleeves or some of the round things, maybe like pajama bottoms, that is a cover stitch, which this machine cannot do. That's a 5-thread serger. It's a different type of stitch, but you may have seen on something that's hemmed this kind of over the edge, where it's cut itself. It's locked in the stitch, but then I still have to put the knot here in the edge. So that is this. If I turn this around, so if I was going to do a hemming, now I could just hem this if I needed to, if on the regular sewing machine. Now I have this where it's not going to fray, and so and then stitch it down. So now I would have this nice finished hem over here. So that's what this kind of sleeve deck is for. That goes on there. So this is where you could see all 4 colors. You want to get the same type of chain and test that out on your when you're going straight over to white. Generally at this point in the inside classroom, I would come across to all of you students that were sitting at a serger and clip your threads and say, thread it again. So gently, we're engaging it just to pull, to get that old thread out, and then we would go ahead and do it again. Now, some tips on these different spools. Okay, I'm going to turn this way. because I've got one camera that can see the front, and I've got one camera that can see the back. So some of the spools of thread, there are spools of thread here, there are cones here there are cones available in the creative arts department. There's there have been some that have been donated, but you can always collect your own cones. The ones that I recommend if you're going to keep a stash of cones is white, tan, and black. And so white, tan, and black, or white and bone, natural. And then one of these two grays. So there's a dark gray, like a gunmetal gray, and then there's another one called like nickel or silver. These are some good generic colors, and you don't necessarily need all four. You need, at least have three. Because the one thread, if you noticed, if I pull this open, so we can see the blue thread. So that's this one over here, because it's coming through on the edge if I'm pulling this seam apart, even though this yellow and this red are the needles that are on the outer side. But what do I see in there when I'm pulling? That's the blue. So this is going to be the thread that is most exposed. So I would definitely want to have that thread be whatever color my fabric is. So if I'm stitching up something that is this light purple, then I would do either this tan, more likely one of these neutral grays and silver. Have those, all three of these cones, and then have my purple over here at the end, since that's the one that shows up. Now, these cones, as the thread starts to be used, these, the ones that use the least amount of thread at a time are going to be these two. So these two cones that are right here on your needles, these are the ones that will take the longest. So when I'm putting my cones in, if I've got nice fat cones full of 3,000 yards of thread, you saw that the blue and the green do the most wrapping, as they're going around the fabric. If I had all gray cones that I was putting on here, then my thinnest ones, my skinniest ones, would go over here on my needle threads, because they use the least amount of thread. And then my thicker, my heavier, bulkier cones, of course, would go on on these two loopers, because nothing sucks more. Excuse me. Nothing sucks more is when you're doing a project and you run out of thread on one of these loopers in the middle of your project, because that means that you've got to stop and you've got to cut everything off and rethread the machine. So if you're coming in to serge, then we're going to go ahead and make sure that the cones are appropriately set up. In the future, after things get under control and we start to have serging events again, if you want, when we set those up and I have all the machines set up, generally, because we have all sorts of the serging events, like the Serge for a Cause, when we make burp cloths, or when we make hats, beanies for shelters, those for those events, those are open to all experience, even if you don't know how to thread the machine. If you can guide, if you can steer the ship, is what steer that fabric through that foot, you can see how easily you can get a nice serged edge and a finished product. So those are opportunities to practice. And of course, if we're changing colors or anything like that, then you'd be able to go ahead and practice by threading it. But those events, I usually have the machines ready to go, so that way anybody of all skill levels can jump on the serger and help serge those items. If they're not cutting fabric, there's always something to do together in that group when we have those events in the future. So basically, we need to go over needles. So, Paul, I need a close-up. So I'll need right in here. That's, yeah, get this one to get in there because I need to be right here. Oh, now I'm all tangled up. Still all tangled up. Okay, so if you can see, I'm trying to turn this so that you can get just the right amount of light. Hold on, I'm going to get my cell phone. Okay, excellent. So right now I've put the light onto where the needles sit. And right in here, there's a little set screw, okay? How do we get to that set screw? That set screw right in there, that set screw is the how to get those needles on and off. You see that there's another screw up at the top? Do not unscrew that. That has a regular panhead type screw. You will take the needle, you will end up taking this one here. No, 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 no. This one here is what we use to loosen up those needles. No, yes. And if you can see right in here, you can see the top of the needles. There's the top of the outer needle, and you can see that this little piece of metal right here.
Blocking out the other shot.
Yeah, completely. But so which one? We're trying to look at this one here.
Let me switch to the Droid cameras.
Dizzy cam. Okay. So what we're looking at there is, and this is not, hold on. Okay, so is that your thumb that's in the way? What's down there? Okay. So right in here, I'm trying to get that light. There's a set screw. And then up here, there is a regular screw up at the top. Do not touch that screw. That will take off this whole needle assembly. No, no, no. You can see here, there's the needle hitting up at the top of that. And I'm going to go ahead, and what I'm going to get is, let me turn this flashlight off. In the Serger box, there is the Allen wrench. Please put this back. This is like gold. Once it disappears, you will be stuck and you will have to search all over the place to get one, so that, because it fits right in. Hold on. It fits perfectly right in there in that set screw. So these should always be just finger tight. Okay, righty tighty, lefty loosey. There we go. Just finger tight. And I'm trying not to, so you can see that the needles you can see up here at the top. I'm trying to get you to come up here to the top. It's real hard for you to see. You can see right now where I'm having the needles hit the top. Okay, so the needles are supposed to be offset. The one sits higher than the other. So once again, like we switched over to the other machine, you can see that the needles have a flat side and a curved side. They will only fit in one direction inside. When you're if one of these needles breaks, you need to replace both of them, because the other one's probably dull, and you never know if one of them bent or caused any other damage at that time. So this set of needles I had just put in on this machine a little bit earlier, so now I'm going to put them back in. I'm going to try and keep my hands out of the way. So I'm holding them together, and you see that both of them have blue marks on them. So both needles need to be the same color. Remember on the needle package, we saw orange, blue, and purple. No blue and orange, because then you've got one needle that's for mid-weight fabrics and one needle for fine and lightweight fabrics. That's just not going to work. You're asking for trouble. And so they have to be the same type or the same gauge needles there. So, oops, turned around. Come on. Okay, I am totally, this is taking skill. There's that one. Okay, this. Okay, I gotta pull these back out again. There we go. So you can see how they both are hitting up there at the top. Okay, so then I'm going to go ahead and get this little, while I'm holding them both in position, get that in there, and I'm going to hand tighten. I'm not going to crank this all the way over. Oops, you just went black. Okay, so I'm not going to crank it where I'm going to strip this screw, because then that would be bad. And you can see how the inner needle is lower and the upper needle is a little bit higher, and you should see the tops of those needles up there in the underneath this little needle plate, this plate there that helps stop them. Okay, and then of course we would thread the machine. So that is briefly how to change that needle. If you need help, there's a couple of people here that know how to use the sergers, and you should be able to ask for some assistance. Once things get settled down and Paul and I start coming back on a more regular basis, you can find me in the printmaking area or sometimes over here in Interactive when I'm sewing big projects, because that's the best place. I'm on the wide shot. That's the best place. That's where I'll usually be. And then other people that sew, are you planning on learning? Not yet? You know how to change a needle.
I know how to change it.
Yeah, so if you have a needle situation, Beth, who teaches our Sewing 101 classes and will assist with learning the Baby Lock Zest, she knows how to change a needle, so do not panic. She's usually here a lot, so working on projects, and she might be able to, if she's here, she'll be able to help you. If not, put a note up on the on Talk for Creative Arts. If something happens, if something breaks, like the blade or the loopers, please do not be afraid to put something up on Talk that says, hey, one of the machines went down, it's got a broken blade. And mark the machine, tape it off, put a piece of tape on it, says broken blade. I've even come in where someone had a problem and they could not get the chain that completely came unthreaded, and so they marked it as not being safely usable. The next time one of us comes in, we'll check it out, make sure that it's in good shape, rethread it if that's all it needed so that it's ready to go. Okay? So don't be afraid to ask for help. That's about it. The next class that's going to be streaming here shortly is going to be beanies, and you'll see a couple of varieties of different hats that we normally teach in the Serger 102 class. You can hand me the heads. So, going from just a regular old square hat to the little kind of funky jester hat, and then also we have a traditional beanie, a slouchy beanie to use, and this one went a step further as being a reversible beanie. I use this one for work so that when I'm at the tow yards, you can see me, so that the forklifts don't run me over. And they can see me moving around over there with my fluorescent yellow. And then if I want to wear it someplace else, then I'm just slouchy with the purple with a yellow band. So this one's a little bit of overkill, so it's not for down south. It gets too warm. But those are just some of the hats and things that we've made. And then also, I forgot to bring it, but infinity scarf is one thing that we've done. We've actually done a pullover, slouchy, comfy sweatshirt, and of course the blanket. Huh? Oh, that's, yeah, we've serged burnt cloths, like I mentioned in the Surging for a Cause, using flannel. And those are just a few of the things that we've serged. Oh, we've done the tote bag. So this, which I printed the fabric before. So this one I printed over in the printmaking. We also have a pattern for this, and then also lined, but this whole thing was serged together. So we do a tote bag class as well. So, and then also aprons. We've made aprons because everybody needs an apron now and again, especially up here. So those are just some of the items that we've done as project classes up here with the Serger and the Zest, and keep an eye out for some of those. We'll put those online as well. We'll stream those, and those will be available so that you can do them from home, or we'll have at least space for one person up here during while we're streaming. And that's it. Thank you very much, and you have a great day. Hopefully this will at least get you to feel a little bit more comfortable with threading the Serger. We'll have to see how the video, if it was able to focus up tight on those. If not, if it's not too clear, please comment. This is only the second time that we've streamed, and we're experimenting with the streaming cart here at the Dallas Makerspace, which will enable us to do some of these classes, instructional classes, from here, so that you can watch them at the comfort of your own home. And if we need to, then we'll redo this one to see if we can get better camera shots. So let us know. Thank you very much, and you guys have a safe day.